I felt it in. No time for the doubt, they counting me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I'm paying the cost, I'm in it to win, yeah. Refuse, mine, it can't be diffused. If you ain't thinking the same, then we playing by different rules. You can't see the vision, we living at different views. Until we complete the mission, keep getting up, never snooze. I walked a mile in my shoes, had the mind of a fool, chasing diamonds and jewels. Trust me, I was confused. Started minding my business and used my mind as a tool. Ended up finding my purpose and found the time to get to it. They told me I couldn't do it, they told me I couldn't make it. They sold it, could never break it. That's sadly mistaken. I need a piece of the pie, I want it so bad I can taste it. They told me like told me, keep on running, toes they gon' take them. Refuse to lose, load the win, apply myself, I felt it in. No time for the doubt, they counting me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I pay for the cost, I'm in it to win, yeah. Refuse to lose, I'm built to win, apply myself, I felt it in. No time for the doubt, they counting me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I'm paying the cost, I'm in it to win, yeah. Refuse.
Welcome back to CTC. I'm your gracious host, Carl, and I'm back with another episode. There we go. The sound effect wasn't working, but there we go. We got it now. This episode we're gonna be talking about the Big 12. We got the Big 12 coming for y'all this morning before I go to work. Before I talk about the Big 12, I'd like to ask that you leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. It helps the channel, helps the network. It was my channel, CTC, by the way I refuse to lose network. Also, we got shows like the R2L main show every Tuesday and Friday, 7 to about 8:30ish, featuring Joe, Tomo, and Dave. We have Unfazed every Tuesday at about 9 to about 10:30ish, 8 o'clock Eastern. 8 o'clock Central Time, excuse me. Like I said, that's featuring Joe and AJ. We have BWT, Baseball with Teddy. Man, the Brewers finally taking L after 14 straight games. Next, we have Dave's Doghouse, highlights and lowlights of sport. FFC fantasy football with Coach Coombs. After today, week 2 of the preseason will be over, and we just had one more week plus a week off. So NFL season starts in about 3 weeks. So make sure you tune in to FFC for fantasy football advice. We have RBO, Real Ballers Only, and that's by Vaughn. NBA not too far away either, so expect episodes in about the next month or two. We have In the Red Corner featuring Ty, Ricky, and Tomo. Ricky had a birthday yesterday. Salute. Shout out to him. Happy belated birthday. But that's a boxing show. All your boxing needs through them. And I believe that's all the shows we have on the network. So please like, comment, share, subscribe to all the shows on the network. And if you like what you're listening to, stick with us. So we're going to hop right into the Big 12 today. And first, we're going to, we're going to do it alphabetical order. So we're going to start with the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona, after a really good season 2 years ago, not so high last year, coming off a 4-8, 2-7 season. This year they bring a new OC and a new DC, defensive coordinator Danny Gonzalez, offensive coordinator Seth Dohey from Marshall. So trying to revamp things this season coming up. Brett Brenner's trying to revamp things. They returned 12 starters, 5 on offense, 7 on defense. The big starter they return is Noah Fafita at quarterback, who went 260 of 430, 60.5% completion percentage, 2,958 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Chris Hunter, the wide receiver, who had 85 catches for 323 yards. 35 catches for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. Sam Olsen, the tight end, who had 13 catches, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Dalton Johnson, 94 total tackles, 47 solos, 2 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. Tay Brown, linebacker, who had 68 total tackles, 29 solos, 2.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Genesis Smith, another safety, who had 64 total tackles, 39 solos, 6 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Trey Smith, a D lineman, who had 56 total tackles, 17 solos, 4.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. Jack Cottrell, safety, who had 39 total tackles, 24 solos, pass breakup, 3 interceptions, and a forced fumble. Now, they also returned Trey Smith, a D lineman, who had, they lost Quali Conley, the running back, who had 150 yards, and he carries for 745 yards, 5 a carry, and 8 touchdowns, who's currently on the Bengals. The big loss is T-Mac Toya McMillan, wide receiver for the Panthers, who had 84 catches, 1,319 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Another big loss in Jacob Manu, the linebacker, who had 47 total tackles, 19 solos, 2 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery, who transferred to Washington. Takario Davis, a cornerback, 43 total tackles, 28 solos, and 6 pass breakups, also transferred to Washington. Owen Goss, a defensive back, who had 52 total tackles, 23 solos, a sack, 2 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. They were 63rd overall in a recruiting class. They were 52nd in transfers. They got some transfers like Ishmael Mahdi to replace Conley, who's been killing it in the Sun Belt at Texas State. Running back who had 183 carries for 991 yards, 5.4 carry, and 4 touchdowns. Chris Hudson, a big get at receiver from Washington State, played alongside Cal Williams last year. He had 69 catches for 840 yards. 54 catches for 683 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Luke Weissong, another receiver from New Mexico, who had 69 catches, 840 yards, and a touchdown at New Mexico. They were 96 in total offense, 105th in total defense, 42nd in passing, 119th in rushing, 114th in scoring offense, 102nd in passing defense, 98th in rushing defense, and 108th in scoring defense. So defense was definitely the down of last year. I remember watching the K-State game, just could not get stops against Avery Johnson, Jace Brown, and the boys. For the schedule, this upcoming schedule, they start off with Hawaii at home. I have that as a win. Then they play Weber State at home. I have that as a win. They have Kansas State at home. I have this as, again, being a loss. And I believe this game doesn't count as a conference game because I believe this was scheduled before Arizona moved to the Big 12. At Iowa State, I have this as a loss. At home against Oklahoma State, I have this as a win. At home against BYU, I have this as a loss. On the road to Houston, I have this as a loss. On the road at Colorado, I have this as a loss. At home against Kansas, I have this as a win. At Cincinnati, I have this as a win. On the road against Baylor, at home, against Baylor, I have this as a loss. And the final game, the rival game between Arizona State and Arizona. At Arizona State, I have this as a loss, having Arizona going 5-7, 3-6, taking the under 5.5 wins total for Arizona just by the hook. I do think Arizona may be a little bit better this year. I just don't know if with the schedule they have, they do play some schools I'm higher on, like K-State, Iowa State, Baylor, Arizona State. So that's 4 tough opponents already in conference, with 3 technically because K-State won't count as an in-conference game. But those are really 4 really tough opponents. And then you have BYU, who I think is still just well coached. Even though they had the Jake Retzlaff situation where Jake is now not there any longer, I think they're still well coached, still going to have a defense, and they're going to be a problem for Arizona. So 5-7, 3-6 is where I have Arizona taking the under once again of the win total. And we move on to a team, like I said, that I am high on this year. Arizona State, coming off winning the Big 12. They went 11-3, 7-2, again winning the Big 12, 45-19 against Iowa State. They lost in the college football playoffs, however, in the quarterfinals to Texas, 39-31 in double overtime. An exciting game. Cam Scatterbo had the game of his career collegiately against Texas. They came back, tried to win the game, just came up a bit short against a really talented Texas team. But again, an exciting game at the end of the game. They returned 17 starters, 7 on offense, 10 on defense, which is the most not only in the Big 12, but in college football. So that's huge there. So they returned Sam Levitt, the quarterback, 216 of 350, 61.7% completion percentage, 2,885 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He also had 443 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. They returned Jordan Tyson, one of the talented freshman receivers in the country, who had 75 catches for 1,101 yards and 10 touchdowns, pretty much their entirety of the passing game. Kaman Mateer, tight end, who had 32 receptions for 306 yards and 5 touchdowns. They returned Miles Rouser, the safety, who had 98 total tackles, 51 solos, a sack, and 4 pass breakups. Returned Xavier Alford, the safety, who had 85 total tackles, 40 solos, 5 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Keyshawn Elliott, the linebacker, who had 65 total tackles, 25 solos, 2 sacks, a pass breakup, and an interception. Jordan Crock, a linebacker, who had 57 total tackles, 28 solos, 2 pass breakups, and an interception. uh, Jordan Crook, excuse me. Clayton Smith, a D lineman with 33 total tackles, 16 solos, excuse me. 4.5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Elijah O'Neal, a D lineman with 29 total tackles, 14 solos, 4 sacks, 5 pass breakups. Prince Darbo, a huge get of D lineman, who had 12 total tackles, 7 solos, 3 sacks, and a pass breakup. Keith Abney, as cornerback, who had 52 total tackles, 34 solos, 9 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions. Javon Robinson, a cornerback, who had 43 total tackles, 33 solos, 4 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Now, the huge loss. Cam Scatterbo now moves on to the NFL. He is currently on the New York Giants. He had a monster year last year, 293 carries, 1,711 yards, 5.8 a carry, 21 rushing touchdowns, and then you throw in 45 receptions for 605 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. They lost Xavier Guillory, who's currently on the Ravens, 222 receptions for 339 yards and 5 touchdowns. Shamari Simmons, a safety who had 72 total tackles, 39 solos, 4 pass breakups, an interception, and 4 forced fumbles. They were 60th in the recruiting class, 56th in transfers. They brought in guys like Kanye Udo, who won the American Athletic Conference Championship game with Army as a running back. He had 179 carries, 1,117 yards, 6.2 a carry, and 10 touchdowns. Now, it's going to be different. It won't be throughout the triple option at Arizona State, but he's still a good back. Then you bring in another good receiver in Jalen Moss to pair with Jordan Tyson. Coming from Fresno State, where Jalen Moss had 48 catches, 563 yards, and 4 touchdowns last season, even though Fresno State had a down year with Mikey King. And then you bring in Kendrick Breelove, a transfer cornerback from Purdue, who had 40 total tackles, 28 solos, 4 pass breaks, 3 interceptions, trying to bolster that secondary at Arizona State. It was really solid defensively. Arizona State last year was 28th in total offense, 38th in total defense, 62nd in passing, 20th in rushing, 30th in scoring option, 81st in passing defense, 21st in rushing defense, and tied 37th in scoring defense. Now let's get into the schedule for Arizona State. They start off with Northern Arizona at home, which is a win. And then they go to Mississippi State in the home-to-home series. I think they win 2-0 in that home-to-home series. I think they beat Mississippi State on the road. They then go play Texas State at home. I have this as a win. They go on the road at Baylor. I have this as a win, but a good game. They go back home to play TCU. Well, also have this as a win. They play at Utah. I think Utah's always tough defensively, but offensively leaves a lot to desire. And that's why I have Arizona State to win this one. Texas Tech, really good team. I'm excited to see how they look without Taj Brooks. So I have Arizona State winning this one. And then at home against Houston. Houston's still trying to figure it out. I have this as a win. Then they go on the road to play Matt Campbell in their Big 12 championship game rematch against Iowa State. I do have this as a loss. They're riding high, 7-0 at the time. Things tend to get weird when you play tough opponents on the road at that time. I think this is an L. Then they go back home against West Virginia and Rich Rod, and I have this as a win. I have them beating Colorado on the road and then at home to finish again against Arizona, where I have this as a win. I have Arizona State going 11-1, 8-1 in conference play, having another spectacular season, bringing back all that from that Big 12 championship team. So I think they'll be at top of the conference yet again and possibly playing for the Big 12 yet again. Next, we have the Baylor Bears. Oh, and Arizona State would take the over 8.5 win total. Next, again, is the Baylor Bears. Baylor had a very strong ending to the year last season before losing the bowl game to LSU. I believe they won 6 straight to end the year. Offense caught fire, Bryson Washington specifically. They're coming off an 8-5, 6-3 season where they lost the Texas Bowl 31 to LSU. Not a bad opponent to lose to in the bowl game. LSU also is a very good team. They returned 13 starters, 8 on offense, 5 on defense. They returned Sawyer Robertson, the quarterback, 229 to 368, 62.2% completion percentage, 3,071 yards, 28 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Returned Bryson Washington, the running back, with 175 carries, 1,028 yards, 5.9 a carry, and 12 touchdowns. Josh Cameron, wide receiver, who had 52 catches, 754 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Ashton Hawkins, a receiver who had 45 catches, 567 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Keaton Thomas, a linebacker, had 106 total tackles, 62 solos, 2.5 sacks, an interception, and a touchdown. Devin Bobby, a safety, with 76 total tackles, 51 solos, 2 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. Carl Williams, safety, who had 35 total tackles, 20 solos, sack, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. Jackie Marshall, a defensive lineman, who had 40 total tackles, 24 solos, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. Caden Jenkins, the cornerback, who had 24 total tackles, 20 solos, 4 pass breakups, and an interception. Now they do lose Matt Jones, the linebacker, who had 104 total tackles, 64 solo tackles, 4 sacks, 6 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. He's currently on the Raiders, or trying to make the Raiders. Trevine Mahe, a defensive lineman, who had 42 total tackles, 25 solos, 3.5 sacks, and a pass breakup, also trying to make the Raiders. LaRondo Johnson, a cornerback, who had 14 total tackles, 12 solos, 10 pass breakups, and interception. Corey Gordon, a defensive back, who had 34 total tackles, a cornerback, who had 25 solos, 2 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and he is currently transferred to Louisville. And Cameron Randolph, an edge, who had 33 total tackles, 20 solos, 3.5 sacks, and 2 interceptions, currently trying to make the Chargers. Now they had the 40th overall recruiting class, 50th in transfers. They bring in Travion Barnes, a linebacker from FIU, who had 129 total tackles, 59 solos, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, a touchdown, a fumble recovery, trying to replace the production of Matt Jones. Devin Turner, transfer safety from Northwestern, who had 51 total tackles, 33 solos, 3 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a touchdown. So that's good there. Phoenix Jackson, also a linebacker from Fresno State, transferred in, who had 49 total tackles, 30 solos, 4 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a touchdown, and a forced fumble. Now, they were 20th in total offense, 87th in total defense, tied 34th in passing, 42nd in rushing, tied 19th in scoring offense, 94th in passing defense, 72nd in rushing defense, and tied 79th in scoring defense. We'll hop into the schedule because I'm really excited about Baylor this season. Again, ended with a hot, ended the year hot. Offensively caught fire. Defensively just going to be solid. They play Auburn at home to start the year, and although I am really high on Auburn, I don't want to say extremely high because you'll find out later tonight, but I do think this is a really good game. And because Baylor's at home is the reason why I gave Baylor the nod in this game. But I do think that SEC defense versus this hot Big 12 offense is going to be something exciting to watch. Mixed with the home crowd. I gave this one to Baylor because they're at home. Next, at SMU. I gave this one to SMU. I do have Baylor losing this one. And then they go back home against Sanford. I have this as a win. The Arizona State game at home, I have this as a loss. Oklahoma State, I have this as a win. I do have them winning at home against Kansas State. I have them losing on the road to TCU. TCU Baylor are normally good games, in my opinion. Then a win at Cincinnati, a win at home against UCF, a win against Utah at home, a win against Arizona on the road, and a win against Houston at home to end the season 9-3, 7-2, taking the over 7.5 win total for Baylor. I do think Baylor continues to get hot offensively or stay as hot offensively, and I do think that this will be another great season for Baylor, and I'm excited to see what bowl they will be in. Next, we have BYU. BYU is coming off an 11-2, 7-2 season where they did not make the Big 12 championship game because there was a four-way tie at 7-2 conference play with the Big 12. But they were right there. They just did not own the tiebreaker to make the Big 12 title game. They won the Alamo Bowl, however, against the team that they were tied against, Colorado, which is absolutely crazy, in my opinion. They won 36-14, dominated that game. They bring back 9 starters, 6 on offense, 3 on defense. It was 10 until the Jake Retzlaff situation happened again, which Jake Retzlaff has now transferred after being cleared. Any wrongdoing. The only wrongdoing he did was, being at the school that holds values and breaking those values. But he did nothing illegal. So he just left and walked on to Tulane. Heard he's been doing well at Tulane, by the way, so shout out to him. But They do return L.J. Martin, the running back, 137 carries, 718 yards, 5.2 a carry, and 7 touchdowns. Chase Roberts, a wide receiver who had 52 catches, 854 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Darius Lassiter, 45 catches, 703 yards, and 4 touchdowns. On defense, they return Isaiah Glasker, a linebacker who had 70 total tackles, 42 solos, 3.5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, touchdown, and 4 fumble. Tanner Wall, a safety who had 53 total tackles, 31 solos, a pass breakup, and 3 interceptions. And Jack Kelly, a linebacker who had 50 total tackles, 33 solos, 5 sacks, a pass breakup, an interception, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Now, again, they lost Jake Retzlaff, the quarterback, due to that situation, who had 213, 368, 2,947 yards, 57.9 completion percentage, 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, who had 417 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Again, transferred to Tulane. Lost Keelan Marion, a receiver who had 24 catches for 346 yards and a touchdown, transferred to Miami University, the U. Harrison Taggart, a linebacker who had 69 total tackles, 34 solos, a sack, 3 pass breakups, an interception, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery, transferred to Cal. Tyler Beatty, an edge rusher who had 59 total tackles, 33 solos, a sack and a half, 2 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, onto the NFL, trying to make the Vikings. Mark Collins, a cornerback who had 24 total tackles, 16 solos, 8 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Jacob Robinson, a cornerback who had 43 total tackles, 28 solos, 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery, trying to make the 49ers. They were 59th in the overall recruiting class, 83rd in transfers. They bring in guys like Carson Ryan, a tight end who had 10 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown from Utah. They bring in Keanu Tanuvasa, transfer from D lineman who had 16 total tackles, 8 solos, a sack, and 4 pass breakups. Now, BYU, they're normally just, made through BYU. They go on their little mission, they come back, and they just come ready to ball. They come disciplined. They play sound football. They're going to be really tough. They're not going to make many mental mistakes. You have to just straight up beat BYU. And this is going to be one of those teams, again, where you're just going to have to straight up beat a well-coached BYU team. Now, to get 2 transfers in the BYU-Utah rivalry is crazy, but hey, they got them. They were 59th in total offense last year, 13th in total defense, 60th in passing, 68th in rushing, 40th in scoring offense, 20th in passing defense, 33rd in rushing defense, and 18th in scoring defense. Again, just a really good football team. You're just going to have to beat them with sound football. Let's get into the schedule where they play Portland State. Have that as a win at home. At home against Stanford, I have that as a win. On the road against East Carolina, I have that as a win. On the road against Colorado, I actually have this one as a loss. Funny enough, and I think the Buffs, they remember that beating that BYU put on them, and I think them being at home, I think they'll try to avenge that one. At home against West Virginia, I have that as a win. On the road against Arizona, I have that as a win. At home against Utah in this rivalry, I have it as a win. On the road against Iowa State, I have that as a loss. On the road against Texas Tech, I have that as a loss. At home against TCU, I have that as a loss. And I have them finishing at home against Cincy, on the road at Cincy with a win, and at home against UCF with a win, going 8-4, 5-4 in conference play. Having another solid season, not as great of a season the year prior, but a solid season, earning a solid bowl, 8, potentially 9 wins if they win the bowl game season. I think that's a great year for BYU. We'll move on to Cincy, which has struggled to find its way in the Big 12, unlike BYU, and teams like Arizona State. But yeah, they're coming off a 5-7, 3-6 season. Which, by the way, the BYU segment take the over. I'm taking the over 6.5 wins for the win total. But they're coming off a 5-7 season, 3-6. Return 10 starters, 4 on offense, 6 on defense. Now, I'll just say it for later. Anyway, they returned Brendan Sorsby, a quarterback who went 249 and 389, 64% completion percentage, 2,813 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, and then had 9 rushing touchdowns. Joe Royer, a tight end who had 50 total catches for 522 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jake Goldie, a linebacker who had 58 total tackles, 28 solos, a sack and a half, 2 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Antoine Peak Jr., safety, who had 56 total tackles, 33 solos, a pass breakup, and 4 forced fumbles. Dante Corleone, a defensive lineman who had 26 total tackles, 14 solos, and 3.5 sacks. Jaquan Saints, a safety who had 42 total tackles, 23 solos, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. They did lose Corey Kiner, huge part of Cincinnati last year, the running back, who had 204 carries, 1,153 yards, 5.7 a carry, and 4 touchdowns, trying to make the 49ers. Xavier Henderson, the wide receiver, had 59 catches for 738 yards and 4 touchdowns. Tony Johnson, a wide receiver, had 48 catches, 449 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Jared Bartlett, a linebacker, had 69 total tackles, 34 solos, 7.5 sacks, and 3 pass breakups, trying to make the Packers. Derek Canteen, a defensive back, who had 44 total tackles, 29 solos, 5 pass breakups, interception, and a forced fumble, trying to make the 49ers as well. And then Jordan Young, a defensive back, 35 total tackles, 19 solos, 5 pass breakups, transferred to Arkansas. And Eric Phillips, a defensive end, total tackles, 14 solos, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. Now, they were 62nd in overall recruiting class, but 46 in transfers. They brought in some transfers like Xavier Williams, a transfer safety from Middle Tennessee State, 75 total tackles, 54 solos, 3 pass breakups, an interception, and a fumble recovery. Tally Walker looking to step right in and replace Corey Kiner's production, running back from Wisconsin, who was a tough runner. Had 190 carries for 864 yards, 4.5 a carry, and 10 touchdowns. They bring in Matthew McDoom, a cornerback from Coastal Carolina, who was pretty locked down in the Sun Belt. 36 total tackles, 27 solos, 10 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. And Cyrus Allen, a receiver at Texas A&M, trying to rejuvenate his career. He had 18 catches for 269 yards and a touchdown. And Jeff Caldwell, a receiver from Lindenwood, who had a pretty great year at Lindenwood, but can he do this at the Division I level? Who had 52 catches, 1,011 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Well, FBS level, I should say. 36 total on offense, and 36 in total offense, 85th in total defense, 55th in passing, 36 in rushing, 89th in scoring offense, 73rd in passing defense, 85th in rushing defense, and 62nd in scoring defense. What happened in the schedule where they start off at Arrowhead against Nebraska, where I have this as a loss. Then they play at home against Bowling Green, which I do have this as a win. Then they play at home against Northwestern State, which I have as a win. Then they go on the road to Kansas, which I have this as a loss. At home against Iowa State, I have this as a loss. At home against UCF, I have this as a loss. On the road against Oklahoma State, I do have this as a win. At home against Baylor, I have this as a loss. On the road against Utah, I have this as a loss. At home against Arizona, I have as a loss. And at home against BYU, I have as a loss. Finishing on the road against TCU, I have as a loss, going 3-9, 1-8. Now, majority of the reason why I'm so low on Cincinnati is, like I said earlier, Brendan Sorsby. I'm not really a huge Brendan Sorsby guy, quarterback, and then they bring him back. I don't think that they win a lot of games with him under center or under the helm. I do like the fact that Tyree Walker comes in and replaces Corey Kiner, but they won 5 games with Corey Kiner as the lead guy, and I do think Tyree Walker is very talented, but I don't know how many more games they win with just him alone. And they do lose some big production at receiver. They try to replace it, but who knows how well that works. And with them being, I want to say, a pretty solid defensive team, but not an elite defensive team, it's kind of a lot to overcome there. So I'm just not high on Cincinnati this season. But we'll move on to Colorado. By the way, taking the under for Cincinnati. But Colorado, yes, I'm wearing a shirt. But like I said, man, I wanted to wear a shirt for every conference team. I wanted to wear a team in every Power 4 conference. Now, next year, I got to figure it out with Pac-12 coming back. I don't think I got a shirt for anybody that's in the Pac-12 next year. I got to double check who I was going. But Colorado's coming off a great season. 9-4, 7-2. Coach Prime overcame a lot of odds. A lot of people didn't think he would win 9 games last season. Or a lot of people, when he took over the job, didn't think he was probably able to win 9 games, period. A lot of goalpost shifting was done when Coach Prime got successful at the Colorado program. So shout out to him. They did lose the Alamo Bowl, like I said a couple segments ago, versus BYU 36-14. It was bad, but they returned 8 starters, 4 on offense, 4 on defense. This is now a year to test how well Coach Prime can reload. They do return Preston Hodge, a cornerback who had 33 total tackles, 21 solos, 6 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. The 4 offensive players that come back are all linemen. They returned DJ McKinney at cornerback, 61 total tackles, 43 solos, 8 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, a touchdown, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Carter Stoudemire, safety, who had 42 total tackles, 33 solos, 7 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. And Samuel Akunluola, a defensive end who had 30 total tackles, 18 solos, and 3 sacks. Now, they do lose a lot. They lost Shador, the engine offensively at quarterback, to the Browns. 353 out of 477, 74% completion percentage, 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, who played receiver and cornerback, 96 total catches, 1,258 yards, 15 touchdowns to go with 35 total tackles, 24 solos, 11 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, and a forced fumble. Currently on the Jaguars. LaJohntay Wester, a wide receiver, 74 catches, 931 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Currently on the Ravens. Will Shepard, wide receiver, with 48 catches for 621 yards and 6 touchdowns. Currently on the Packers. Jimmy Horn Jr., wide receiver, with 37 catches for 441 yards and a touchdown. Currently on the Panthers. And they lost Cameron Shillman Craig, a safety, currently on the Jags, with 89 total tackles, 64 solos, 2 sacks, 3 pass breakups, an interception, forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and a fumble return for a touchdown. Nakai Hill-Green, currently transferring to Alabama, 82 total tackles, 53 solos, 2 sacks, 4 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Shiloh Sanders, who has 67 total tackles, 45 solos, a sack, 2 pass breakups, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and a fumble return for a touchdown. Currently trying to make the Bucks. Levante Bentley, 55 total tackles, 35 solos, a sack, forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. BJ Green at edge, who had 33 total tackles, 20 solos, 7.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery, trying to make the Jags. They were 24th in recruiting, 19th in transfers, bringing in Caden Salter to battle with Julian Lewis for the quarterback position, which I ultimately think Caden Salter will win. Coming from Liberty, where he was 147 to 261, 56.3 for completion percentage, 1,886 yards, 15 total touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, with 587 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns, bringing that dual threat ability to Colorado. I mean, he did have a down year last year. He also got a little injured last year. Not the same as his 2023 season, but he's looking to improve upon the 2024 season. Joseph Williams, a transfer wide receiver, at 30 catches, 588 yards, and 5 touchdowns from Tulsa. Tariq Byard transferred in at safety from Southern Florida, USF. 54 total tackles, 34 solos, 2 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. Martavius French, linebacker, transferring from UTSA, where he had 80 total tackles, 52 solos, a sack, and 3 pass breakups. And Sincere Brown, a transfer receiver from Campbell, who had 61 catches, 1,028 yards, and 12 touchdowns, trying to do it at the FBS level. Colorado last year was 69th in total offense, 50th in total defense, 6th in passing, 133rd in rushing, tied 31st in scoring offense, 40th in passing defense, 71st in rushing defense, and tied 43rd in scoring defense. Again, last year, running the ball was a major problem, as they were dead last in rushing. Got to be able to establish the rushing attack this season if they want to have any ounce of success. I do think Caden Salter helps in that with that dual threat ability. But we get into the schedule. I do have them losing to Georgia Tech to start the season. Then I have them beating Delaware at home, beating Houston on the road, beating Wyoming at home, beating BYU at home. Then after winning 4 straight, losing at TCU, losing at home against Iowa State, losing on the road against Utah, winning at home against Arizona, losing at West Virginia, losing at home against Arizona State, and losing at Kansas State, finishing 5-7, 3-6. Y'all know I'm a Coach Prime guy. I've always been a Colorado guy, but I gotta be real. I don't see a bowl game. I do see some games that can flip. Like a game that can flip, Utah can flip, West Virginia can flip, in my opinion. But from the record I have on my paper, 5-7, 3-6, I have the under in win total, under 5.5, and Colorado just misses a bowl game. But I think Coach Prime will still be fine. And I'm actually, prayers up to Coach Prime. Hopefully he's well. He's going through his medical things. Don't even know if he's going to be on the sidelines for some of these games. So they also played a factor in some of these as well. But I wish the best for Coach Prime. Sorry, Colorado, just not that high on y'all this year as opposed to other teams in the conference. But we can move on to Houston, where Willie Fritz has replaced his OC and his DC. His DC comes from Florida, Austin Armstrong, while his OC, they work together at Tulane, Slade Noble. They worked together at, like I said, Tulane, where they won. They lost to SMU. I want to say they won the year prior, though. They did win the American. I want to say the year prior to that. He was also there when they beat Caleb Williams and USC in that New Year's Six bowl game. I want to say it was the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, so shout out to them for that. Houston's coming off a 4-8, 3-6 season. They returned 11 starters, 7 on offense, 4 on defense. They returned Zion Chris, the quarterback, who went 83 of 130, 824 yards, 63.8% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 4 rushing touchdowns. Rashawn Sanford, a running back, who had 94 carries, 444 yards, 4.7 a carry, and a touchdown. Stephon Johnson, a receiver, who had 32 catches, 402 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Mekhi Muse, a receiver, who had 29 catches, 253 yards, and a touchdown. Kentrell Webb, the safety, who had 54 total tackles, 35 solos, 3 pass breakups, a fumble recovery. And Carlos Allen, a defensive lineman, who had 42 total tackles, 17 solos, 2.5 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries. Brandon Mack, a linebacker, who had 39 total tackles, 26 solos, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Latrell McCutcheon, a cornerback, who had 36 total tackles, 30 solos, 2 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. They do lose Donovan Smith, a quarterback, who went 87 to 133, 867 yards, 65.4% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3 on the ground. Joseph Manjack, who transferred to TCU, a receiver, who had 22 catches for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns. AJ Halsey, a safety, who transferred to LSU, 74 total tackles, 43 solos, 7 pass breakups, and 5 interceptions. Michael Batten, a linebacker, who had 63 total tackles, 25 solos, and a sack. Keith Cooper Jr., a defensive lineman, who had 46 total tackles, 25 solos, 3.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery trying to make the Lions. And Jeremiah Wilson, a safety, who transferred to Florida State, 24 total tackles, 16 solos, 4 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, and a touchdown. Now, they had the 41st overall recruiting class, 27th in transfers. They bring in a quarterback, Connor Wegman from Texas A&M, who's probably going to be, he's the best quarterback that Willie Fritz had at Houston so far. It's a fiery guy, 64 114, 56.1% completion percentage, 819 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He did get benched for Marcel Reed coming back off injury last year. He's looking to rejuvenate his I believe this is his final year in college football, and try to get his draft stock up. They bring in Dean Connors, a running back who I really like out of University of Rice. He was there with Luke McCaffrey and I think JT Daniels at quarterback before JT Daniels medically retired from football. They had a pretty solid season that year. Did not have the greatest season last year, so he's transferred into Houston to help Houston bolster the rushing attack. He had 159 carries, 780 yards, 4.9 a carry, and 9 touchdowns at Rice last season. Kamika Glass, a transfer linebacker from the University of Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajun, 75 total tackles, 44 solos, and half a sack. And Tanner Kozio, a tight end from Wisconsin, had 94 total catches, 839 yards, and 8 touchdowns, bringing in big production. That tight end spot, they did lose Malik Carr. Houston did. So trying to replace him with Kozio. They love their Big Ten tight ends. They finished 128th in total offense, 25th in total defense, 126th in passing, 90th in rushing, 132nd in scoring offense, 28th in passing defense, 44th in rushing defense, and 40th in scoring defense. So offensively, a tough year last year. Just couldn't figure it out at quarterback, in my opinion, last year. Quarterback or running back, for real. Sanford took the job kind of like midway to late in the season last year, but quarterback just could not figure it out. And now they got Connor Wegman. I think he's going to be the guy this upcoming season. But we come into the schedule where they play Stephen F. Austin. I think that's a win. A win against Rice on the road. A loss to Colorado at home. A win at Oregon State. A loss at home to Texas Tech. A win at Oklahoma State. A win at home against Arizona. A loss at Arizona State. A win at home against West Virginia. A loss at UCF. A loss at home against TCU. A loss at Baylor. Finishing the season 6-6, 3-6 with a 3-game losing streak, but ultimately making a bowl game for the first time in the Willie Fritz era, which I think that's a big step up. Houston is also a team that has been struggling to find its way in the Big 12 ever since they joined the Big 12. Before we move on to Iowa State, I thought Memphis I thought they would accept their bid for the Big 12, but no, the Big 12 did not accept their bid, even with the money that they offered. I thought, saying that Houston basketball was so successful, they at least take it for Memphis basketball team, but no, they declined them. So, but that's the over 5.5 for Houston. We'll start to Iowa State. Iowa State was coming off 11-3, 7-2 season. They did lose in the Big 12 championship game, 45-19. But they did win the Pop-Tart Bowl against Miami, the U, 42-41. They returned 14 starters, 9 on offense, 5 on defense, namely Rocco Beck, the quarterback, who went 271 to 456, 3,505 yards, 59.4% completion percentage, 25 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 318 yards on the ground, and 8 more total on the ground as well, 8 more total touchdowns. They returned Carson Hansen, a running back, who went 151 carries, 752 yards, 5 a carry, 13 touchdowns. Abu Sama, another running back, who had 124 carries, 587 yards, 4.7 a carry, and 2 touchdowns. And they bring back all 5 of their linemen from that last season. So that's huge for Iowa State. They bring back Gabe Burkle, a tight end, 26 catches, 296 yards, and a touchdown. Now, defensively, they bring back Jeremiah Cooper, a cornerback, who had 48 total tackles, 30 solos, 8 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Cooper Ibel, a linebacker, who had 69 total tackles, 32 solos, and a sack. Jontez Williams, a cornerback, who had 46 total tackles, 23 solos, 5 pass breakups, and 4 interceptions. Now, they do lose 2 big pieces to their offense. Their main 2 pass catchers, and they both went to the same NFL team, which is funny enough, but they lost Jalen Noel, wide receiver, with 80 catches, 1,194 yards, and 8 touchdowns, going to the Texans, and Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, with 87 catches, 1,183 yards, and 9 touchdowns, going to the Texans. They lost Miles Purchase, trying to make the Chargers, a cornerback, who had 35 total tackles, 22 solos, 6 pass breakups, an interception, and a fumble recovery. Bray Frailer, a defensive back, who had 84 total tackles, 46 solos, 4 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Malik Vernon, a safety, who had 75 total tackles, 34 solos, a sack, 5 pass breakups, an interception, and a 4 fumble, trying to make the Falcons. J.R. Singleton, a defensive lineman, who had 32 total tackles, 10 solos, 4 sacks, pass breakup, and a 4 fumble, trying to make the Seahawks. They were 57th in overall recruiting class, 59th in transfers. Matt Campbell's another guy who's going to try to build his program with the players that he recruited. They bring in, however, Xavier Townsend, a transfer wide receiver, who had 10 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown last year, but his 2023 season had 33 catches, 325 yards, and 3 touchdowns, coming over from UCF. Chase Sewell, a receiver I really like from ECU, East Carolina, 34 catches, 678 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Tamada McDonough, a transfer edge rusher from Yale, with 27 total tackles, 22 solos, 6.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, trying to bolster up the Iowa State, who's normally a really elite Big 12 defense. So trying to help bolster that. They were 39th in total offense, 51st in total defense, 39th in passing, 70th in rushing, tied 41st in scoring offense, 1st in passing defense, 109th in rushing defense, and 41st in scoring defense. So got to bolster up that run defense this upcoming season. I remember the Texas Tech game, Taj Brooks was a problem, but Taj Brooks is a problem for normally everybody. But we can get into the schedule. First game, we have Kansas State in Dublin, Ireland. I have this as a loss. South Dakota at home, that's a win. Iowa at home, that's a win. At Arkansas State is a win. At home against Arizona is a win. On the road against Cincy is a win. On the road against Colorado is a win. At home against BYU, I have as a win. At home against Arizona State, I have as a win. On the road against TCU, I have as a loss. And then I have them winning at home against Kansas and on the road against Oklahoma State to end the season as a win. Going 10-2, 7-2, and having another 10-game win season. Another really good season in the Big 12. Iowa State is showing that they are one of the powers in the Big 12. And that's the over 7.5 win total for Iowa State. We will move on to Kansas, where Kansas is coming off a very disappointing season, so much so that Jeff Leipold is brought in co-OC Matt Libick from Nevada, and he's brought in the DC. Well, he didn't bring him in. He's an in-house promotion, but he promoted DK McDonald. I believe he was a linebackers coach. He's now the defensive coordinator for Kansas, but definitely had to make some changes in the program. Again, very disappointed coming off a 5-7, 4-5 season. Did not make a bowl game. I thought Kansas was going to be one of the teams to be like one of the powers last season. Did not happen that way. They returned 6 starters, 3 on offense, 3 on defense. I don't know how we still here, but Jalen Daniels returns at quarterback. It just seems like he's been at Kansas forever. He went 171 to 300 last year, 2,454 yards, 57% completion percentage, 14 touchdowns with 12 interceptions, and then another 447 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Dean Miller returns at defensive end, 32 total tackles, 22 solos, 6 sacks, 3 pass breakups. Returned J.D. Withers, a defensive tackle, with 21 total tackles, 16 solos, 3 sacks, and a pass breakup. Tommy Dunn, a defensive lineman who had 16 total tackles, 9 solos, a sack and a half, and a forced fumble. Now, they lose a ton of production on both sides of the ball this season. They lose Devin Neal, a running back who had 219 carries, 1,266 yards, 5.8 a carry, 16 touchdowns on the Saints. Luke Grimm, a wide receiver with 51 catches, 690 yards, and 6 touchdowns trying to make the Chargers. Quentin Skinner, a wide receiver who had 25 catches, 557 yards, and 4 touchdowns trying to make the Jets. And Lawrence Arnold, a receiver who had 26 catches, 360 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively, they lose both their corners. Mello Dotson, 49 total tackles, 39 solos, 6 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, so 2 pick sixes, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery trying to make the Panthers. And Kobe Bryant, cornerback, who had 37 total tackles, 26 solos, half a sack, 7 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, and a forced fumble trying to make the Falcons. J.B. Brown, a linebacker who had 74 total tackles, 52 solos, 5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery trying to make the Broncos. Cornell Wheeler, linebacker with 64 total tackles, 40 solos, 4 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble. Marvin Grant, safety who had 59 total tackles, 40 solos, 3 sacks, 6 pass breakups. Jeremy Robinson, a defensive end who had 22 total tackles, 16 solos, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery trying to make the Patriots. They were 61st overall in recruiting class, 39th in transfers. They alongside Daniel Highshaw at running back. He is coming back. They do bring in LaShawn Williams, a running back from Iowa, who in 2023 had 170 carries, 821 yards, 4.8 a carry, and a touchdown. Who I saw an article say he's found his love for football back in Kansas, so salute to him for that. Cam Pickett, a wide receiver from Ball State, who had 49 catches, 528 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Joseph Sipp Jr., a transfer linebacker from Bowling Green, who had 79 total tackles, 42 solos, 7 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. And Bryson Canty, a receiver from Columbia, who had 43 catches, 760 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Definitely got to replace the production of those 3 guys from Kansas last season. Last year, they were 37th in total offense, 92nd in total defense, 90th in passing, 13th in rushing, 52nd in scoring offense, 103rd in passing defense, 75th in rushing defense, tied 75th in scoring defense. It's very disappointing last year. But we can get into the schedule, where they start off at home against Fresno State, I have as a win. At home against Wagner as a win. On the road against Mizzou, I have as a loss. At home against West Virginia, I have as a loss. At home against Cincy, I have as a win. On the road against UCF, I have as a loss. On the road against Texas Tech, I have as a loss. Kansas State at home, I have as a loss. Oklahoma State at home, I have as a win. On the road against Arizona, I have as a loss. And on the road against Iowa State, I have as a loss. And at home against Utah, that stingy defense, I have as a loss. Having Kansas going 4-8, 2-7 in conference play, having another bad year. Now, I don't think Leipold will be on the hot seat because of this, but I will say the seat is starting to get warm. But it's Kansas football. Like, they don't expect, at least me, I'm not expecting Kansas to be like a bowl game every year. You got to take what you had for what it's worth. You had College Game Day coming to Kansas. Leipold had the feeling restored in Lawrence. I think he's due for like another down year, but he's going to have to rebound quickly after that. Next. Oh, by the way, that's the under 6.5 win total for me, by the way. Next, we have Kansas State. Kansas State coming off a pretty solid year, 9-4, 5-4. Where they did win the Rate Bowl 44-41 versus Rutgers. Avery Johnson is looking to take the next step alongside Jace Brown. So I'm interested to see how they look. They return 11 starters, 6 on offense, 5 on defense. Again, namely Avery Johnson, the quarterback who went 217 to 372, 58.3 completion percentage, 2,712 yards, 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Boy also had 605 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns on the ground. Jace Brown, wide receiver who had 47 catches, 823 yards and 5 touchdowns. Garrett Oakley, a tight end who had 22 catches for 236 yards and 5 touchdowns. Austin Romaine, a linebacker who has 96 total tackles, 54 solos, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 3 forced fumbles. VJ Payne, the safety, had 64 total tackles, 40 solos, 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. Desmond Purnell, a linebacker, had 46 total tackles, 33 solos, 4 sacks, pass breakup, fumble recovery. Damon Ilio, defensive tackle, who had 34 total tackles, 19 solos, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 3 forced fumbles. Now, they did lose DJ Giddens, who's an elite running back, in my opinion, at the collegiate level, who had 205 carries, 1,343 yards, 6.6 a carry, 7 touchdowns, 21 catches, 258 yards, and a touchdown on the Colts. Keegan Johnson, 29 catches, 559 yards, and a touchdown, transfer to New Mexico. Brandon Mott, a defensive end, who had 46 total tackles, 25 solos, 8.5 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. Marquise Siegel, a safety, who had 60 total tackles, 38 solos, 3 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a pick 6, trying to make the 49ers. Jacob Parrish, a cornerback, who had 50 total tackles, 40 solos, 7 pass breakups, and interception, trying to make the Bucks. Keenan Garber, cornerback, who had 29 total tackles, 24 solos, 5 pass breakups, and interception, trying to make the Vikings. And Austin Moore, a linebacker, who had 59 total tackles, 28 solos, a sack and a half, and a pass breakup. They had the 45th overall recruiting class, 57th for transfers, bringing in guys like Gunnar Maldonado, a safety, who I thought, while Arizona had a terrible defense, he was one of the bright spots of that defense. He had 79 total tackles, 56 solos, a pass breakup, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and this was his stats in 2023. Gabe Irvin, a running back, transferred from Nebraska with 14 carries, 41 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2.9 a carry. Didn't get the biggest of workloads, looking to get a huge workload this year at Kansas State. And Amarion Fortenberry, a transfer cornerback from South Alabama, had 45 total tackles, 31 solos, 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. Now, last year they were tied 31st in total offense, 43rd in total defense, 85th in passing, 11th in rushing, 46th in scoring offense, 77th in passing defense, 28th in rushing defense, and tied 50th in scoring defense. But just a really solid overall team. But we can get into the schedule where they start off again in Dublin against Iowa State, where I have this as a win. They play at home against North Dakota, I have as a win. At home against Army, I do think this is a win. On the road against Arizona, I have as a win. At home against UCF, I have as a win. On the road against Baylor, I do have them taking that loss to Baylor. At home against TCU, I have as a win. On the road against Kansas, battle of the Sunflower Showdown, I have this as a win. Texas Tech at home, I have as a win. Oklahoma State at home, I have as a win. On the road, I have as a win. On the road against Utah, I have as a win. And at home against Colorado, I have as a win, going 11-1, 8-1, taking their only loss, in my opinion, to Baylor, taking the over 8.5 win total for the Kansas State Wildcats. Honestly, that was the team I was going to wear on the show, but I didn't really find a shirt that I liked, to be honest. So maybe I'll find one next year. But we move on to Oklahoma State. Boy, Oklahoma State was down bad. So bad that the head coach, which I'm blanking on his name, Mike Gundy, fired his OC and his DC. He brought back Doug Meacham, but this time, instead of being an O-line coach, he is now the OC. And he brought in defensive coordinator Todd Grantham, whose last collegiate job was at Florida in 2021. So he's changing things up. I would too, after coming off a 3-9, 0-8 season in the Big 12. They now win one Big 12 game. Could be some foreshadowing. They return 4 starters, 1 on offense, 3 on defense. The offensive starter they bring back is Josh Ford, the tight end, who had 10 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. They returned Iman Oates, a defensive tackle, who had 25 total tackles, 13 solos, 2 sacks, and a pass breakup. They bring back Cam Smith, a cornerback, who had 34 total tackles, 25 solos, 7 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble. And they returned Dylan Smith, a safety, who had 42 total tackles, 33 solos, and a pass breakup. Now, my boy Cam Peoples should have a big year, hopefully, this season. But they lost Anna Bowman. I don't know if it's really a loss. A quarterback went 2 of 4, 340, 60% completion percentage, 2,423 yards, 16 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Huge loss in Ali Gordon, running back, who had 190 carries, 880 yards, 4.6 carry, 13 touchdowns, currently on the Dolphins. Deshaun Stribling, a wide receiver, who had 52 catches, 852 yards, and 6 touchdowns, transferred to Ole Miss. Brandon Presley, a wide receiver, who had 90 catches, 767 yards, and 7 touchdowns, trying to make the Rams. Rashad Owens, a receiver, who had 32 catches, 515 yards, and 4 touchdowns, trying to make the Bengals. Corey Black, a cornerback who had 36 total tackles, 28 solos, 9 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions trying to make the Giants. Trey Rucker, a safety who had 84 total tackles, 53 solos, a pass breakup and 2 interceptions. Kendall Daniels, a linebacker who had 64 total tackles, 45 solos, 5.5 sacks, and 7 pass breakups, currently transferred to Oklahoma. Jeff Robertson, a linebacker who had 58 total tackles, 42 solos, 3 sacks, and an interception, transferred to Minnesota. And Nick Martin, a linebacker who had 47 total tackles, 28 solos, a sack, 2 pass breakups, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. He's trying to make the 49ers. They're the 55th overall recruiting class, 35th in transfers. They're bringing guys like Christian Fitzpatrick, who transfers in from Marshall with 34 catches, 576 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Freddie Brock, who I think is a really good running back from Georgia State, who had 151 carries, 819 yards, 5.4 carrying, 8 touchdowns. And Kyron Duhan, a transfer edge from UTEP with 43 total tackles, 21 solos, 7 sacks, and 2 pass breakups. And Taj McCoy, a transfer edge from Colorado, who had 23 total tackles, 19 solos, and 4 sacks. Now, they were 80th in total offense last year, 132nd in total defense, 30th in passing, 114th in rushing, 74th in scoring offense, 131st against the pass, 128th against the run, and 125th against scoring. Defense, just horrible defensively. Horrible. Now, the schedule this year. I have them winning at home against UT Martin, losing on the road against Oregon, winning at home against Tulsa, losing at home against Baylor, losing at Arizona, losing at home against Houston, losing at home against Cincy, losing on the road against Texas Tech, losing at Kansas, losing at home against Kansas State, losing at UCF, and losing against Iowa State, going 2-10, 0-9. So I think I said 3-9, 0-9. I meant to say 3-9, 0-9, but I meant to say 3-9, 0-9. I think I said 3-9, 0-8. But anyway, now there are some games I think they could potentially win. Like, I look at this, I think they can beat Kansas. I think they can beat Cincinnati. I think they can beat Houston, and I think they can beat Arizona. Those are 4 games where I think can go either way and can potentially change Oklahoma State's season. But ultimately, I went with them going winless. So I'm taking the under 4.5 win total, winless in Big 12 play yet again. Now, they can't prove me wrong. Like I said, there's 4 games that can sway that. But we're going to move on to TCU, another team that I'm very high on. TCU is coming off a 9-4, 6-3 season where they did win the New Mexico Bowl pretty handily, 34-3 against University of Louisiana Lafayette. They returned 9 starters, 4 on offense, 5 on defense. But the big starter they returned is Josh Hoover, the quarterback, who he went 313 to 471, 66.5% completion percentage, 3,949 yards, 27 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Eric McAllister, receiver, 39 catches, 762 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Nnamdi Obizor, linebacker, 81 total tackles, 41 solos, 2.5 sacks, a pass breakup, an interception, and a forced fumble. Devin Deal, edge rusher, who had 46 total tackles, 29 solos, 5.5 sacks, and a pass breakup. Bud Clark, 44 total tackles, 44 solos, 68 total tackles, 3 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble at safety. Jamel Johnson, 73 total tackles, 44 solos, 3 pass breakups, and a forced fumble at safety. And Marquise Deal, a defensive tackle, at 21 total tackles, 10 solos, a sack, pass breakup, and a fumble recovery. Now, last year, they had some problems running the ball until they went to wide receiver Savion Williams to run the ball, and he did a pretty good job there. They do lose Cam Cook at running back, who transferred to Jack State, 119 carries, 460 yards, 3.9 a carry, and 9 touchdowns. And Savion Williams, wide receiver / running back, who's the receiver in the league, 60 catches, 611 yards, 6 touchdowns, 51 carries, 332 yards, 6.3 a carry, and 6 touchdowns. He was a tough runner. Jack Beck, who got drafted by the Raiders, 62 catches, 1,034 yards, and 9 touchdowns. J.P. Richardson, a receiver who had 57 catches, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, trying to make the Bears actually at 733 yards. My bad. And then Johnny Hodges, a linebacker who had 89 total tackles, 47 solos, a sack. Nana Osofu Mensah, a defensive lineman who had 38 total tackles, 22 solos, 3 sacks, and a pass breakup. Lamarian James, a cornerback who had 34 total tackles, 26 solos, 12 pass breakups, with an interception. Currently trying to make the Browns. And Abe Kamara, safety who had 55 total tackles, 28 solos, 6 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. They had the 33rd overall recruiting class, 50 in the transfers. They bring in Kavorian Barnes of UTSA, who I really like this guy as a running back. With 78 total carries for 221 yards, 2.8 a carry, and 2 touchdowns last season. Joseph Manjack, the receiver, trying to replace some receiver production out of Houston. 22 catches, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Sil Den Memba, defensive tackle from Washington State, who had 24 total tackles, 14 solos, and 6 sacks. They were tied 31st in total offense, 45th in total defense, 8th in passing, 112th in rushing, 25th in scoring offense, 23rd in passing defense, 83rd in rushing defense, 63rd in scoring defense. We'll get into the schedule for TCU, where they start off on the road against UNC. I have it as a win. At home against Abilene Christian, I have it as a win. At home against SMU, another series that is normally fun to watch, I have it as a win. On the road against Arizona State, I have it as a loss. At home against Colorado, I have it as a win. On the road against Kansas State, I have it as a loss. At home against Baylor, I have it as a win. At home against West Virginia, I have it as a win. No, excuse me, that was on the road against West Virginia, I have it as a win. Iowa State at home, I have it as a win. At BYU, I have it as a win. At Houston, I have it as a win. And at home against Cincy, I have it as a win. TCU go 10-2, 7-2, taking the over 6.5 win total for the Horned Frogs. I think they have a really good season. Josh Hoover, I'm really excited on. Just got cut down a little bit on them turnovers, my boy. Next, we'll go to the Red Raiders, Texas Tech Red Raiders, where they have a new OC, Mac Leftwich, coming over from Texas State, and they have a new DC, Shield Wood, coming over from the University of Houston. Now, TCU, they're coming off an 8-5, 6-3 season where they lost the Liberty Bowl 39-26 versus Arkansas. They returned 12 starters, 5 on offense, 7 on defense. They returned Baron Morton, the quarterback, huge return there, who went 295 of 466, 63.3% completion percentage, 3,335 yards, 27 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Caleb Douglas, a wide receiver who had 60 catches for 877 yards and 6 touchdowns. Coy Eakin, a receiver who had 49 catches for 652 yards and 7 touchdowns. Jacob Rodriguez, a linebacker who had 127 total tackles, 78 solos, 5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, an interception, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a fumble for a touchdown. Ben Roberts, a linebacker who had 84 total tackles, 38 solos, and 3 forced fumbles. Morian Horn, a cornerback who had 57 total tackles, 31 solos, 5 pass breakups. Chapman Lewis, a safety who had 43 total tackles, 27 solos, 3 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. And AJ McCarty, a safety who had 31 total tackles, 19 solos, half a sack, 2 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown. Now they lose a really big piece of that offense in Taj Brooks, a running back who has been a staple for Texas Tech for a long time. He had 286 carries, 1,505 yards, 5.3 a carry, 17 touchdowns for the Bengals. Josh Kelly, a receiver who had 89 catches, 1,023 yards, and 5 touchdowns. By the way, Taj Brooks is trying to make the Bengals. CJ Baskerville, a safety who had 78 total tackles, 52 solos, 4 pass breakups, 4 interceptions. And Isaac Smith, an edge rusher who transferred to Michigan State, who had 31 total tackles, 15 solos, and 2.5 sacks. They're the 21st overall recruiting class, second in transfers. They bring in guys like David Bailey, a transfer edge from Stanford, with 31 total tackles, 22 solos, 7 sacks, and 5 forced fumbles. Bryce Pollard, a transfer cornerback who had 48 total tackles, 24 solos, 7 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble, transferring in from Mississippi State. Quentin Joyner, a running back from USC, who had 63 carries, 478 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 7.6 a carry. Romello Height, which was a huge transfer to me, Georgia Tech, 34 total tackles, 18 solos, 2.5 sacks, an interception, and 2 forced fumbles, looking to have a better season this year. And Reggie Virgil, a transfer receiver who had 41 total tackles. It's 41 total catches. Oh, my God. 116 yards and 9 touchdowns coming from Miami of Ohio. Last year, they were 9th in total offense, 126th in total defense, 9th in passing, 61st in rushing, 4th in scoring offense, 132nd against the pass, 73rd against the run, and 121st in scoring defense. We'll jump into that schedule. Where I have them starting off the year with a win against Arkansas Pine Bluff. I have them winning at home against Kent State, winning at home against Oregon State, winning on the road against Utah, winning on the road against Houston, winning at home against Kansas before they took their first L on the road against Arizona State, winning at home against Oklahoma State. They take another L to Kansas State on the road, and then they finish off the year winning against BYU, UCF at home, and West Virginia on the road, going 10-2, 7-2, and having another spectacular season. We can move on to UCF, where Scott Frost is back where he got his name from. They were coming off a 4-8, 2-7 season with Gus Malzahn before they fired him. They returned 4 starters, 1 on offense, 3 on defense. They returned Nigel Kelly, edge rusher, had 53 total tackles, 23 solos, 5.5 sacks, a pass breakup, and 3 forced fumbles. Malachi Lawrence, an edge rusher, had 15 total tackles, 12 solos, 5 sacks, a pass breakup, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. And Brandon Marshall, safety, had 22 total tackles, 17 solos, 3 pass breakups, and an interception. And they lost RJ Harvey, which was basically the offense last year. Running back who had 232 carries, 1,577 yards, 6.8 a carry, 22 touchdowns, 20 catches for 267 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air. Currently on the Broncos, Kobe Hudson trying to make the Panthers, who had 47 catches, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Randy Pittman Jr., the tight end, who had 32 catches, 416 yards, 2 touchdowns, transferring to Florida State. Ethan Barr, a linebacker, who had 72 total tackles, 29 solos, 2 pass breakups, a fumble recovery. Zyree Alexander, a linebacker from currently transferred to Washington, who had 68 total tackles, 28 solos, 2 pass breakups. Deshaun Pace, a linebacker, 61 total tackles, 40 solos, pass breakup, and 2 interceptions. Quadric Bullard, a defensive back, who had 61 total tackles, 33 solos, a sack, 2 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. Mac McWilliams, who was currently on the Eagles, trying to make the Eagles. Cornerback, who had 32 total tackles, 25 solos, a sack, 2 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble. And Dylan Dotson, at defensive end, who had 31 total tackles, 19 solos, 4 sacks, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. They had the 52nd overall recruiting class, 45th in transfers. They bring in Cam Fancher, UCF type quarterback, to be honest, a guy who's really fast, a really great athlete, decent to okayish thrower. Went 126 to 212, 59.4% completion percentage, 1,528 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Had 365 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns to add to that. Coming from FAU, Jaden Bellamy, a transfer cornerback from Syracuse, who had 34 total tackles, 19 solos, 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown. Jaden Nixon, the speedster, who had 143 carries, 919 yards, 6.4 carry, and 12 touchdowns, coming over from Western Michigan. And Chris Dormerkamp, trying to prove that he can do it at the FBS level at Chattanooga, had 36 catches, 640 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We can get into the schedule where they take on Jack State. Start the year, my guys, but I do have UCF winning that game. And I have UCF winning at home against North Carolina A&T. They're winning at home against UNC. That heat might affect UNC a ton. At Kansas State, just to backtrack a little bit, the North Carolina game, they do have Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick struggled against the Dolphins in Miami. UCF, not in Miami, but in Orlando, same state of Florida, same reason. You know, the humidity, the heat, might pose some trouble. At Kansas State, I have it as a loss. At home against Kansas, I have it as a win. On the road against Cincy, I have it as a win. At home against West Virginia, I have it as a loss. On the road against Baylor, I have it as a loss. At home against Houston, I have it as a win. On the road against Texas Tech, I have it as a loss. At home against Oklahoma State, I have it as a win. And on the road against BYU, I have it as a loss. Having UCF go 7-5, 4-5 in conference play, taking the over 5.5 win total for UCF. Now, we have 2 more teams to cover. If you've been with me this long, I appreciate you for staying with me. Do got to run through these 2 teams. I'm already late for work. It is what it is at this point. Oh, well. Utah brings in a new offensive coordinator, Jason Beck from New Mexico. New Mexico had a really good offense last year, especially on the ground. And I think that's what Utah wants. They want to establish the run, play tough defense, clock control in college football. And that's why I think they bring over New Mexico's OC, Jason Beck. They were coming off a 5-7, 2-7 season last year. Again, Cam Rising gets hurt. He's now medically retired. Trying to figure out the quarterback spot with Isaac Wilson, who does return. They do return 12 starters, 7 on offense, 5 on defense. Like I said, they returned Isaac Wilson at quarterback, who went 127, 225, 56.4% completion percentage, 1,510 yards, 10 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. They do return all 5 O-linemen. They returned Lander Barton, a linebacker, with 72 total tackles, 38 solos, 2 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a touchdown, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Tyler Johnson, a safety, with 70 total tackles, 41 solos, 4 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble. Smith Snowden, a cornerback who had 48 total tackles, 34 solos, 8 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a touchdown, and a forced fumble. Logan Fino, a defensive end who had 35 total tackles, 15 solos, 2.5 sacks, a pass breakup, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Elijah Davis, a cornerback who had 29 total tackles, 21 solos, 2 interceptions. They lost Cam Rising, again, medically retired. Michael Bernard, a running back who had 197 carries, 1,009 yards, 5.1 a carry, and 4 touchdowns. Dorian Singer, trying to make the Jags, who had 53 catches, 702 yards, and a touchdown. Money Parks, 21 catches, 294 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Kareem Reed, a linebacker trying to make the Broncos, who had 54 total tackles, 29 solos, 3 sacks, pass breakup, and a fumble recovery. Van Fillinger, a defensive end who had 44 total tackles, 23 solos, 6 sacks, 5 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. Alake Gilman, a safety who had 41 total tackles, 27 solos, a half a sack, pass breakup, and an interception. Zamaya Vaughn, 39 total tackles, 34 solos, 2 sacks, 5 pass breakups, an interception, touchdown, and a forced fumble. Currently trying to make the Vikings. Now, there were 47 from overall recruiting class, 37 from transfers. They bring in guys like Wayshawn Parker, a running back from Washington State, 137 carries, 735 yards, 5.4 carry, and 4 touchdowns. Devin Dampier, who comes over with his OC from New Mexico, who went 226, 390, and 57.9% completion percentage, 2,768 yards, 12 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, 1,166 yards on the ground, and 19 touchdowns. So, brings a huge dynamic over to Utah. And Larry Simmons, a wide receiver from Southern Mississippi, with 27 catches, 421 yards, and a touchdown. Now, last year, Utah was abysmal offensively like they were 2 years ago. 115 for total offense, 29 for total defense, 98th in passing, 98th in rushing, 102nd in scoring offense, 31st in passing defense, 35th in rushing defense, and 25th in scoring defense. Again, bringing that new OC over to try to bolster up that offense. Now, they start the schedule. They start with UCLA at UCLA, so that's why I have it as a loss. Cal Poly at home has a win. At Wyoming, I have it as a win. At home against Texas Tech, I have it as a loss. On the road against West Virginia, I have it as a win. At home against Arizona State, I have it as a loss. On the road, rivalry game against BYU, I have it as a loss. At home against Colorado, I have it as a win. At home against Cincy, I have it as a win. On the road against Baylor, I have it as a loss. At home against Kansas State, I have it as a loss. And on the road against Kansas, I have it as a win. Going 6-6, 4-5, taking the under 7.5 win total for Utah, but they do make a bowl game. And the last team we had is head coach Rich Rod back home at West Virginia. West Virginia was coming off a 6-7, 5-4 season. Pretty good Big 12 season. Not so good overall. I mean, I think it's solid. I mean, they did lose the bowl game, the Frisco Bowl, 42-37 to Memphis. But Memphis was a really good team who was in contention for the American Athletic Conference title. So, not a bad loss. They returned 3 starters on offense. That's all they returned. Just the 3 starters on offense, which is the fewest in the Big 12. They returned Jaheim White, a running back who had 149 carries, 845 yards, and 5.7 a carry, 7 touchdowns. Returned Rodney Gallagher, a receiver who had 26 receptions, 288 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Preston Fox, a receiver who had 12 catches, 431 yards. Now they lost their quarterback and Garrett Green, who West Virginia fans love, 189 yards. 189 to 315, 60% completion percentage, 2,300 yards, 15 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, 751 rushing yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's trying to make the Bucks as a wide receiver. C.J. Donaldson transferred to Oregon, who had 163 carries, 734 yards, 4.5 a carry, and 11 touchdowns. Hudson Clement, a receiver who transferred to Illinois, who had 51 catches, 741 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Cole Taylor, a tight end, who had 43 catches, 444 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Anthony Wilson Jr., a safety, who had 102 total tackles, 52 solos, 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown. They lost Josiah Trotter, a linebacker who transferred to Mizzou, who had 93 total tackles, 37 solos, half a sack, 2 pass breakups, and an interception. Trey Latham, a linebacker, transferred to Kansas, who had 79 total tackles, 40 solos, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. T.J. Jackson, a defensive lineman, who had 40 total tackles, 21 solos, 6.5 sacks, and a forced fumble recovery. Sean Martin, a defensive tackle, who had 23 total tackles, 8 solos, 3.5 sacks, and a pass breakup. Garnett Hollis Jr., a cornerback who's trying to make the Packers, who had 46 total tackles, 27 solos, 6 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. Tyron Bradley Jr., a linebacker who had 56 total tackles, 20 solos, a sack and a half, 4 pass breakups, interception, forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and a scoop and score for a touchdown. And Dantes Fagan, cornerback, who had 37 total tackles, 23 solos, 3 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. Now, they were 49th overall recruiting class, 30th from transfers. Them, I forgot to also mention Colorado, but they had a bunch of transfers. I want to say he had like 54 at Rich Rod. They brought in guys like Grayson Barnes, the tight end from Northern Illinois, who had 31 catches, 338 yards, 4 touchdowns. Fred Perry, a safety out of Jacksonville State, who I really like, who had 109 total tackles, 46 solos, 3 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. Cam Vaughn, his speedy down the field receiver, 48 total catches, 803 yards, and 5 touchdowns from Jack State as well. And Brandon Siders at edge from Wyoming, who had 22 total tackles, 12 solos, 3.5 sacks. Now, let's get into the schedule, where they start off against Robert Morris. I have as a win. Then they play at Ohio. I have as a win, but that's a tough game. Backyard brawl at home against Pitt, I have as a loss. At Kansas, I have as a win. At home against Utah, I have as a loss. On the road against BYU, I have as a loss. On the road against UCF, I have as a win. At home against TCU, I have as a loss. On the road against Houston, I have as a loss. At home against Colorado, I have as a win. On the road against Arizona State, I have as a loss. And at home against Texas Tech, I have as a loss, going 5-7, 3-6, taking the under 5.5 win total for West Virginia. Now, I do think Rich Rod builds from that. And I do think there's some games that can flip that make Rich Rod make a bowl game, but that's just what I got. My standards, let's wrap up this Big 12. My standards, I have Arizona State at number 1, 11-1, 8-1. Number 2, I have Kansas State, 11-1, 8-1. Number 3, I have TCU, 10-2, 7-2. Number 4, I have Texas Tech, 10-2, 7-2. Number 5, I have Baylor, 9-3, 7-2. Number 6, I have Iowa State, 10-2, 7-2. Number 7, I have BYU, 8-4, 5-4. Number 8, I have UCF, 7-5, 4-5. Number 9, I have Utah at 6-6, 4-5. Number 10, I have Colorado at 5-7, 3-6. Number 11, I have Houston at 6-6, 3-6. Number 12, I have West Virginia at 5-7, 3-6. 13, I have Arizona at 5-7, 3-6. 14, I have Kansas at 4-8, 2-7. 15, I have Cincinnati at 3-9, 1-8. And 16, I have Oklahoma State at 2-10, 0-9. Bringing up the rear. My Big 12 championship game is Arizona State versus Kansas State, which I think Kansas State wins the Big 12 this season. And my offensive player of the year is Sam Levitt, quarterback of Arizona State. My defensive player of the year, I'm going to change it on the fly. I do have Jeremiah Cooper from Iowa State at cornerback here. I'm going to change it to Romello Height at Texas Tech off the edge. So that's my defensive player of the year, Romello Height from Texas Tech. Now, that is all I have for y'all for the Big 12. I am doing the SEC tonight as well with Joe. Shout out my boy Joe. He will be on the SEC tonight. And after that, we have Wednesday, the 10 teams to look out for in a group of 5. I do the conference winners. So I have a champion for the Mountain West, Sun Belt, Conference USA, MAC, and the Un-American. Then I have 5 other teams you should look out for in the group of 5 as well. They're not champs, but they should have good seasons, hopefully. And then we have Thursday with our playoff / who's going to win the Natty and our rewards preview. And Friday brings up the Week 0 preview. We have college football this Saturday. I have to talk about a poll this Friday. We have 5 games Saturday. I will be at work, but I'm trying to be off for the next Saturday. That's why I'm working this Saturday. So it's just a glorious, glorious time in college football for your boy. The season is finally here. We're 5 days away. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Please tune in tonight for the SEC. With all that being said, I got to take my happy self to work. I'm gone. Peace.